Welcome everyone to another Dogspot Live. We have a very special guest with us here today, but before I introduce him, let me just tell you a little bit about myself. I'm Unnati Hunjan. I'm a psychologist and animal assisted therapist. My PhD is on neuropsychology and animal assisted therapy. I have an initiative by the name of Therapeutic Pause, and this initiative works on establishing the field of animal assisted therapy in India by providing relevant training and certifications and to be able to spread this field further and create opportunities. We have a very, very special guest with us today here, and Mr. Theodore Baskaran. Welcome to the Dogspot Live. I'm going to give you a quick introduction of Sir here, and it's there are not enough words to explain the accomplishments he has and the amazing work that he's done. Mr. Baskaran was a trustee of WWF India and an honorary wildlife warden in Chennai. He was the South India representative of the International Primate Protection League. He retired as the Chief Postmaster General and currently lives in Bangalore. Sir has a lot of scholarly work and he is very, very well published. He is a frequent contributor to the Hindu and Frontline. He also writes in Tamil and has 4 books on wildlife and 1 on dogs. The amazing book that we're going to be discussing today, and sir, it was a brilliant read even for me, and a lot of people I've spoken to about this book about. And the book on Indian dogs was published by Aleph in 2017. He's written and edited various books and papers in this field. He's received an award by the Canadian Library Garden in Toronto. He was also a part of a UN assignment in Kenya. He's conducted various lectures in places such as Jadavpur, Princeton, London, Chicago University, and has also taught a course at the University of Michigan in 2002. I welcome you, sir, and it's such an honor to have you here today.
Thank you very much.
So this book, sir, about the Book of Indian Dogs, was a very, very interesting read, and I thoroughly enjoyed reading so much about the history of Indian dogs, about the different aspects that we'll be covering today itself. There has recently been a lot of talk about Indian dogs. Would you like to give us a little introduction about the book and tell us a little bit more about how the entire book came about and a little bit about your experience?
Yeah, it goes back to 1964 or 65 when I came across a man in Dindigul railway station with a dog, Indian dog, and he just had a leash to it and was waiting for a train. He was taking the dog for guard duty at the tea estates. I started talking to him and he told me that it's a Rajapalayam dog. It had scars on its skin, evidence of its encounter with boars. So he said they are used for boar hunting and that they are originally from Rajapalayam. I got interested in that and kept in touch with him, and after 6 months I acquired a pup. And
Wow.
That's where my interest in Indian dogs began. But with dogs, I have always been associated and interested. In my childhood, we always had dogs. We had dogs at home in the village. So after this Rajapalayam dog, I began to keep notes on whatever I learnt about Indian breeds, whatever I read. And then I found that there was a lot of history in it. In 1963, one book on Indian dogs came out by an army officer, Soman. I read that, and that kind of gave fillip to my interest in Indian dogs. And in 2015, I sat down. I thought there was enough material for a book. So I sat down and wrote the book, which I always been dreaming of. Yeah. So that's how the book came about. And Aleph, they took a lot of interest, and there was There was very good editorial assistance, and the book came out. And it received a very good reception in terms of reviews and interviews, and I was very pleased with that. I didn't expect that there will be so much of interest in that. Just as we have biodiversity in the wild, there is biodiversity of domesticated animals also. We have many breeds of cattle. Like you must have heard about Gir bull, Sindhi bull, Kangayam bull. We also have among goats and sheep, indigenous breeds. We have 6 breeds of horses, of which the Manipur horse and the Marwari are the better known. So, but the dog was always neglected in India because the dog traditionally in India was reared by so-called low caste people. Okay, like trappers, hunters. So it was not a subject of study or recognition. Secondly, it was a work animal here. It was not a friend like we much later got to know. So all these aspects I record in my book.
That's true. That's absolutely true. So, in fact, it has been a very good read, rightly as you were mentioning, the experiences that you've so brilliantly captured in your book and all the editorial efforts that have gone into it are quite visible when one ends up reading it. So it's a very beautifully written book. It keeps you, engaged throughout. In fact, the beginning of the book, the initial section of the book, speaks about a lot of historical aspects and how these Indian breeds and these dogs have been seen in history as well. I mean, so many old scriptures, books that you go back to, even let it be any of the famous rulers in the past, we have seen the presence of dogs and especially Indian dogs also in various places. Could you tell us a little bit more about these historical aspects that the book speaks about?
See, we now definitely know that Indian dogs were exported to Europe during the first, second century AD, during the time of the Greek invasion, just as they exported Asian elephants from India to Greece. The dogs were taken, and the very clear historical record about them and their size and all that. In ancient age, that is about 1,000 years ago, 1,500 years ago, Indian dogs were valued. But over the years, we don't see that kind of an attention till we come to the modern period. The British, as soon as they come into your country, they look at the animals and the birds and they record them. So they looked at Indian breeds and made a record of it. One of the earliest books on dogs was a book on Afghan Hound, which was in this part. It was not in India, but it was in this part of the world. And we began to look at the other breeds also, like the Himalayan breeds. So the history is that you mentioned about the epics. So we certainly know that they figure in the Ajanta paintings, and there are stories about dogs in the Jataka tales. So the interesting thing is that the artists, the Buddhist artists who worked in Ajanta, they were very, very meticulous about recording the features of dog. So we know that what they have featured, the book that I have in the photograph that I have reproduced, is accurate. It's an accurate depiction of an Indian dog about 2000 years back. But as you know, that the dogs, they change over generations, I mean dog generations. So we have a photograph of a Rampur Hound, which is only about 150 years old photograph, but it looks very different from the present day Rampur Hound. So they changed because of crossbreeding. There was no scientific breeding in those days, because of crossbreeding. So we have these evidences in paintings, Ajanta paintings, and also in sculptures. When we come back to Chola sculpture, like the one that you are showing here, this slide has got a big dog which looks like a massive head, and it's got a who looks like a soldier. He has got it on. Evidently, they were used for some purpose, maybe guard duty or attack dogs. And then, of course, during the Mughals used it in a big way for hunting, and they were hounds, like as you see in this. Recently, I saw a Mughal miniature in which you had a horse. A horse is featured with the pre-saddle shawl over the back of the horse. A similar kind of a jacket on the back of the dog also, which they very often use during winter when they take the dog out. So they took a lot of care, even though they think that the Muslims don't pay attention to dog. But in Mughal miniatures, we do like the one on the screen. They had a lot of depictions of hounds and also hunting scenes. Then you have in the Vijayanagar Empire sculptures that we come to 15th century, and we see hunting dogs on leash. And can I go on?
Yes, please. So it's sorry, you were saying?
No, I said, can I go on?
Absolutely. So it's very interesting to see the presence of these dogs in our history. Like you very rightly mentioned, even in Chola dynasty, the Mughals, we're seeing Akbar with his hound here. Even the first sculpture that we're seeing is that of Lord Shiva as Bhairava, and he has the presence of his dog. Similarly, there are so many interesting instances you've mentioned in the book, such as this memorial of Bhagya, which is Chhatrapati Shivaji's dog, right? So it's very interesting to see these mentions coming from a historical perspective. And I feel another very interesting point that you've mentioned that we will soon be bringing up is how even back then these dogs were looked at more as work dogs. They were working dogs. They weren't primarily bred for companionship. It was mostly for as work dogs. Given this kind of historical background, would you like to comment a little bit on the characteristics that these Indian breeds have? So the place this question is coming from is that recently there has been a lot of talk about Indian breeds, especially in our Indian population, and a lot of people are becoming aware of this breed due to a lot of discussions that are going on it, and people are starting to consider bringing home these dogs, having them at home as companions. But we have another whole set of people that are trying to raise awareness that some of these breeds are not entirely suitable for home, because from an evolutionary perspective, if we look at history, they have been work dogs. Would you like to comment a little bit on their characteristics and probably suitability for an indoor versus an outdoor setting?
I'll come to that. Before that, I want to add one more story from history.
Oh, please do. Please do.
Okay. This is about the Rajapalayam dog. Another name for Rajapalayam dog is Polygar hound. The Polygar is a word which means a satrap. When the Vijayanagar kingdom broke, after the Battle of Talikota, the you can say they broke into small kingdoms, and there were these satraps who were called polygars. It's actually the original word is Palayakara. A Palayam is one small kingdom, and then you have a Palayakara who is in charge of that. He, during times of war, he will give army to the king. Otherwise, he has an independent kingdom. So they had these dogs that came from Andhra area. That's still called polygar dogs.
Oh.
Now these polygars, yeah. If you see the British records, they use the word polygar dogs rather than Rajapalya.
Mhm.
And then during the in 1790s there was this war between the polygars and the East India Company forces. Same time as the Mysore wars, in which Tipu was taking the British army on. So what the polygars did was they had trained these uh, Rajapalayam dogs to attack the horses. That is, they will go in the night, unleash the dogs, who will go into the stables and bite the hamstring of the horses. Finished.
Yeah.
After that, the horse is useless. They can. So this they used, and it's been recorded. And they, of course, used it for guard duties. There is one British collector who says, talking about Kombe dogs, he says, there are many who will happily exchange that's Kombe, happily exchange a horse for a Kombe dog, a good Kombe dog. So that is from the Carnatic Wars incident. Now, coming to your question about the suitability of Indian breeds to indigenous breeds or home, there are certain breeds that are quite suited for home, like the Lhasa Apso and Tibetan Terrier, Tibetan Spaniel. Not going into the question whether they can really be described as Indian dogs. I'll use the word indigenous dogs. They are very much part of our subcontinent and very much in our homes. These are small dogs. I have raised a Tibetan Spaniel. It's a wonderful dog. They are small and they are used to indoors. They are indoor dogs because even where in their native land, they were inside the monastery.
Mhm.
The Lhasa Apso and the Tibetan Spaniel, the monks used to keep them inside the toga like a hot water bottle. So that is, in fact, it's being reared in hundreds and hundreds of Indian homes. But the big dogs, the Rajapalayam, Chippipare, Kombai, they need a lot of space. They need a lot of exercise, and they need a lot of not medical care, but otherwise they need care. And I think they are not suited for urban household, you know.
Mhm.
But we have to be careful not to romanticize these breeds. Oh, Indian breeds, we'll have to rear them and say that I have a Kombi at home, like parking a BMW in your garage. One has to be careful about that, because I know people who get these dogs and are not able to manage. For example, the Himalayan Mastiff needs a lot of care. But I know some people uh, in Delhi who rear them, take care of them. But before we buy a dog, any dog, the question to be asked is first, why do I want a dog? Secondly, can I manage it? Do I have the resources in terms of a compound and a house? Then only then only you should decide on getting a dog. So my like Janangi, for example, very rare dog, but and it's a beautiful breed, but it's difficult to keep in an urban home. You see, I have seen these dogs in their native villages, Kombai, Rajpalayam, Chipipare, Kanni. They are not tied. See, very often they get it into an urban household, and then they are not able to manage. Many people in India do not give a dog the run of the house because dog rearing is not in our tradition. Yeah, as particularly dog as a friend is a new idea. They just like we we followed the British when they came in the 18th, 19th century, playing golf, cricket. So we also started rearing dogs. But the whole idea of having a dog as a friend as a companion in your household calls for a lot of work. It's a responsibility not unlike that of bringing up children. You know, can I give this time and energy to bring up this dog is the question. So I would advise anyone thinking of Indian breed to be very careful about this. But I must tell you, I know people. Well, I have a friend here in Bangalore near my house who got two Chipiparais, and she's got a big compound, and the dogs are doing extremely well. And they can be friendly, of course. Have I answered your question?
Yes, you have. So that's great because I think it's important to know that just because this whole conversation about Indian dogs have been going on, people should not end up getting them just for the sake of that. So, like you rightly mentioned, they need to be prepared and ready to and have the resources before they bring in another dog at home and ensure that they are capable of taking care of them. Also, given that they've primarily been work dogs, at least a majority of these breeds have been primarily been work dogs, and even the history that we were discussing before this, we saw that that's how these dogs have been bred. So the urban households where they are locked up inside the home for a long number of hours while the humans are working is probably not the best situation to keep them in. So thank you, absolutely, you did answer the question really well. But that brings me to the next topic of discussion, that even though these dogs are now being spoken about, there are a lot of them that have been severely neglected, right? I mean, when I was speaking to people about this book and about this interview, a lot of them weren't aware of these different breeds that I was naming, and a lot of people are not aware. They're aware of more of your Western breeds that that you can name easily, but these Indian breeds are a little people are a little lacking in awareness when it comes to these breeds. So a lot of these breeds are now disappearing. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about these disappearing breeds and what's happening with them in today's scenario?
Yeah, I read a note that about 200 years back, one Frenchman who was interested in dogs traveled around India and recorded 50 breeds. So I could record only 25. But after the book published, if you notice, the book has a small note, a request saying that if you know of any Indian breed, please contact me. I'd like to know about it. So at least I got 5 breeds with pictures and with details. And one is from this remote area, Kutch. And beyond Kutch, I got 2 breeds. One was this, and the other is a Sindhi breed, a breed called Sindhi dog. And there is a Manipuri breed. And like Jonangi is very rare also. These breeds are what I call disappearing. But there are attempts to save some of the breeds. For example, for Jonangi, they have found There is one Mr. Upinder Reddy in Hyderabad who has taken it upon himself to save this breed. See, there are certain individuals who have saved breeds. There was this Rampur king who saved the Rampur Hound, you know, along with the king from Gujarat, Mr. Bharia. His descendant used to be present in many of the dog shows till recently. So there are many dogs that are disciplined. I can think of a breed called Malapatti in Kerala and Gazelle Hound, Maratha Greyhound, Ballar Dog, Marwari Sheepdog. All these are in bad shape. I mean, like Alang, there was a notes I read somewhere that there was a breed called Alangi in Tanjavur, but we do not know, we do not have any specimen. But there is an animal called Alangi, the pangolin, you know, the anteater. It's called Alangi. So I guess that the original Alangu breed was a small, low-slung breed. I have also read about a breed called Shengota, which Soman mentions in his book, but we don't have that breed. So many breeds are beyond, the stage of recovery. We may just have some notes and some historical records. So what we have to concentrate on the breeds that we have on hand, which are like Kombay, and try and save them. Yeah. This is what we see in the slide is a drawn picture of a Sindhi hound. I got a good photograph also much later. Yeah. The other dog is Pandikonda from Andhra, which was used for boar hunting. We were talking, we were mentioning that the dogs were basically work animals, like a horse or a draft cattle. They were used for guarding and they were used for hunting, primarily these two, and military purposes. We do not know, we do not have much records about the war, but we certainly know that the polygar hound was used in, and very rarely they are used for other work, like the Jonangi was used for taking care of ducks. That is, they had duck rearing, there was flocks of ducks, and the Jonangi will move along the bank and take care of that. That's a very unusual job for a dog, but it was used, just like in Europe they had used dogs like in Newfoundland for rescue, water rescue. But one thing we have to remember is that though all these dogs, Chipipare and Caravan, they were all used for hunting, none of them were gun dogs. They were not used for gun dog hunting. So the British imported gun dogs when they to break the monotony of life in a colony. They took to hunting in a big way and they finished off most of our wildlife. In the process, they had brought greyhounds, pointers, and setters, and retrievers, Labrador and golden retrievers for their hunting. But we don't have gun dogs. Secondly, our dogs, as you mentioned in the opening remark, our dogs are not show dogs. Nobody to show them. That's why we do not have the docking practice in India. No Indian breed tail is docked. Yeah.
That's That's very interesting, and it's sad to see that a lot of these breeds are less known of. Are like there are very interesting mentions you've made in the book, also like your Rampur hounds and the rest of the breeds that you're talking about. It's they've been present for a while, but over time you're mentioning about how the more Western breeds are coming in. There's been a lot of crossbreeding, and we're losing a lot of the original bloodline of these particular breeds. But there
The,
are, I believe,
the earlier
sorry.
slide, there is a story in the
Yes,
earlier slide.
right.
Can I tell you that story?
Please do.
This is Bagari Hound, which is a very rare, and you can put it in the list of disappearing dogs. There was this nomadic tribe called Wagaris, and they had this dog. Very often, the dogs are either named after the people or the place. Now, I was photographing indigenous breeds of cattle at one point, also for a set of stamps. And I went to a place called Jasdan in Gujarat, and the prince there said, You can go to my farm and photograph the girbul. This man was in charge of the girbul, which was like a small elephant. And at that time, he was 72 years old. And he had this dog. So I got a picture of the dog. And I was so impressed with this man. His name was Vasa. I said, How can I pay tribute to him? And then I decided to grow a mustache like him. That is how I have this mustache. And this is the man who inspired Vasa.
Wow, that's a wonderful story, and
Yeah.
that's an amazing experience to have.
Yeah. And he also told me that he will show me wolves that come to
Wow.
the edge of the. So I stayed there and slept in a charpai, and he in the charpai waited for the wolves, never saw the wolf, but the whole experience was great. Seeing this Vagari dog, that's the only dog, and also Vasa, whom I'll never forget in my life.
That's amazing. And then we've had many other mentions also of other dogs in your book that I hope now more people are aware of, and we can make more efforts towards saving them. But that being said, I believe there are a lot of efforts that are being made to revive these breeds, right? I mean, there are a lot of organizations, there are in fact a lot of governmental efforts also that are being made to save these breeds and prevent them from disappearing completely. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about your perspective of the kennel club and the kennel club, be it of India or the regional kennel clubs that are now making an effort to recognize these breeds and add it to their recognized list?
Yeah, I am very positive about the role of kennel clubs in this direction. I've been associated with the Kennel Club of India, and I've been on their show committees. And I've also been to some of the special shows that they've conducted for native breeds, as they call it. And in that, the native indigenous breeds of South India, they were showcased there. They tell them what is scientific breeding, how to take care of them, and many of the indigenous breeds are in their camps. They conduct camps. See, these breeds in Tamil Nadu are concentrated in southern Tamil Nadu. That
Right.
was the area of the polygars also. And so the camps are conducted there. And many of the dogs are microchipped, and they advise them. And there are quite a few very reliable is the operative word, reliable breeding centers in Rajapalayam and Virudhunagar area. Very clean, scientifically done. I visited some of them. And KCA helps them. Another important dimension of KCA's work is the responsible pet parent. you have to be, what is it to own a dog and raise a dog? How to be responsible for it, in India, a dog has always been used as an abusive language, abusive word. It's because, as I told you, it has been the workers' animal. It has been with them, trappers and hunters. It's never considered. So, attention was not paid to them. So, you can do with a dog. They have a dog, and when they don't spay it or anything. And when it litters, they go. The whole litter is left in the park, and that's how you have this immense, amazing, big population of stray dogs in India. It's because of irresponsible ownership. KCA has been trying to meet that need, but I think it's a very small effort. So that's why we'll have to write. So now I can only talk about Tamil. In Tamil, there are articles coming about dog rearing, responsible dog, and the social media has come in a big way. Say they share knowledge, they share experience. Like yesterday, I saw a picture of a Kombai dog. There is a small boil in its paw between the digits. And the owner has taken a picture of that and asked the other Kombai owners, what is this and what can I do? That kind of a sharing of knowledge is taking place. Um, I'm a great supporter of KCI. I say this KCI are kennel clubs, which take set the standards, because there is also a lobby against kennel clubs, if you know what I mean. The lobby is you should not showcase dogs. They are not to be shown. Very often I have spoken to some of these people, they do not understand. They do not know what is a dog show. A dog show is to tell you how to raise a perfectly normal dog, healthy dog. It does not do any tricks. So my experience with KC has been good.
Right.
And
You're right about. Sorry, go ahead.
and their shows are increasingly getting popular. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So that the point that you mentioned about them showcasing the breed, that's something that's required also to give a recognition to these breeds and for more people to know about what that breed is like. And yeah, definitely not just for any kind of tricks that they are doing. So that's an interesting aspect. And I think something else that you mentioned that I really resonate with, and I myself have been pushing a lot for that, is the ability to write about it. So that's where the importance of this book also comes in, because then more people that read it, they're able to understand about it. Papers, articles, journal articles that people can write about and publish on these topics helps a wider population reach this information. And then, of course, like you mentioned, social media is something that nowadays is really helping spread this information further, create awareness and the right practices regarding this. So that's good to know. Um, are there any? There's been actually a couple of very interesting governmental efforts that you've mentioned in the book as well that have helped with a lot of these Indian breeds. There was one particular one that spoke about a 5 crore grant that was given by the Karnataka government. Could you tell us a little bit about that, because that's a generous amount of fund for Mudhols, I believe.
Yeah, the care that Karnataka government has given to one of its breed, Mudhol Hound. Mudhol is a small kingdom, S12 kingdom, and that Raja took care of this breed. So we have this breed, a beautiful animal. So what one particular minister, what he did was, let me get his name.
This was Govind Karjol, right?
Sorry?
Govind Kajror.
Yeah, right. That's right. I got it. Yeah, Mr. Kajror was a dog fancier, and he set up this um, place for to breed Mudhol hounds scientifically at Bagalkot. Not just there is a scientific whelping room and vets in attendance. Not only that, they did extension. They do extension work. In their list, they have got 700 owners of Mudhol hounds, and they tell them about periodical vaccination, taking care of scientific breeding and common illnesses, and also selling these hounds. Their work attracted so much attention that the Indian Army acquired about 8 pups to begin with, and they have trained them in guarding and detection of landmine, and they have done very well. There is a YouTube there, Indus Dobbs, DOBBS. You can go and see these Mudhol hounds in the army station doing this work for which they have been trained. This is an excellent example of what can be done for Indian breeds of dog. You will be interested to know. Do you know this money that the Karnataka government gave comes from the SC/ST fund? Because, scheduled caste and scheduled tribe, they take care of this dog traditionally. The heritage has come through them.
Mm-hmm.
That's an important point. It's so in the Northeast also. It is from that budget allotment that they've given, and it's doing extremely well. You can order a pup there, well in time, and they give it after the initial vaccination, all scientific.
Yeah.
The second effort was made in Tamil Nadu in 1981. Again, minister called Gomati, she was interested in. So she set up this right in Madras city, a place to breed Rajapalayam, Kombai, and Chipipara. But what happened when the party in power changed, that was neglected. And then, I have visited that. It was a very good place. There you can place your order for pups, and they were doing very well, but now it's closed. But the only example that we have is the Bagalkot example, Karnataka government. And then the Institute of Genetic Resources, which is in Karnal, Punjab, they sent a team to study Rajapalayam and Chipipara hounds. Now their idea was to go on and do the other breeds also, like Kanni, but abruptly it was stopped. So I filed an RTA to know why it was came, and got a cryptic reply which said that the project was over, so we stopped. But then we have so many breeds in India. Anyway, what they did was their findings have been published in Indian Journal of Animal Sciences. It's a very important article on Rajapalayam. Okay, they had used the American Kennel Club standards, which consists of about 60 questions. Then they also published an article on Kanni breed in Indian Veterinary Journal. So there have been scientific studies sponsored by the government, Ministry of Agriculture, which sent this team from Karnal. So these are the attempts from the government, but they are very few, as you can see. They are not many. Whereas we have so much of attention paid to indigenous breeds of cattle. I think dogs are also should be taken care of, the breeds, because I look at it as our heritage. You know, it's not just the Asiatic lion which is our heritage. It's not just the Odissi dance which is our heritage, but this is a live heritage which each animal has evolved according to the needs of the landscape, the nature, and as you told in the opening remarks that most of them have flap ears to guard their soft tissues of the inner ear from the bushes in which they operate. So it is a product of this geographical area, and I think they need to be protected. That one another good effort was the stamps by the government. Yeah. Now all these photographs were taken by me.
Wow.
Yeah, I had actually photographed 10 breeds, and when I was in office, I tried, but who cares for dogs? I thought there was this cranky fellow presenting proposal on dog breeds. But then I came to Madras after retirement. I met Mr. Sudarshanam, got to know him, and I showed him my slides. And I said, we will send a proposal. At that time, my friend became the secretary of the Department of Posts. Two things combined, and we were able to bring out these stamps for breeds. This Himalayan sheepdog was in the news 3 years back, if you remember. In Siachen Glacier, they were used in army posts as a messenger from post to post. And there was a picture of the dogs that they used, that they had used 2 dogs. Yeah.
That's very interesting, and I believe a lot of the efforts that you've mentioned are, even though the efforts are lesser, it's still a step in the right direction. And I hope, especially all the scientific methods that you mentioned about the ways of breeding them and the ways that people can access these dogs, I hope more of these continue. And since it's a step in the right direction, we can just hope that it continues in the same way. Is there something you'd like to tell our viewers about what a little bit of something what we can do to help this situation? Any ways that we can help?
Yeah. Before that, I want to tell you one more point about stamps.
Yes, please.
The dogs, many countries in the world have honored their dog breeds through stamps. Now, these stamps are what are called special issues, commemorative stamp. That is only once it is issued. But each time maybe they will 10,000 stamps they will produce, or maybe 100,000, but limited. It will never be printed again. But there's a different kind of stamp which is called a definitive series. That is, they keep on printing. My dream is one of our dogs should come in that stamp. In Japan, they glorify their breed, Akita. And in Brazil also, they have their breeds in the regular definitive series of stamps. I think the Kennel Club should lobby for it. Yeah. Your question is on what we should
Right.
do. I think we should, if we are talking about dog owners, we should talk about responsible ownership. And if you're a vegetarian, then you have to think twice before you get a dog. Even though now you have pellets like Pedigree and Royal Canin, which has. I know people who won't even touch it because it contains non-vegetarian matter, meat. So, what food we give dogs? We cannot give. Uh, we cannot give vegetarian food to a dog, and I know people who have done that, and the long-term effect is bad. The dog doesn't remain healthy, and it's a very short lifespan. I think we should first get informed about our dogs and our heritage, and learn about it, support the KCA and efforts like that. There are many groups that are supporting these breeds, there is a group called Society for Indian Breeds in Bangalore, and there is an ethnic breed of dogs which takes care of Jonangi and Pandigunda in Andhra. Kombai, for Kombai they have a group. These groups also are very helpful. Though there is also a lot of debate, fight and argument among them in the social media. But I think we have to keep our eyes on our aim, in which is to maintain the standard of the breed. That's where setting up standard comes, but it's a very thorny issue, Now Indian breeds we have sent proposal only for caravan to be recognized internationally by FCI. To send a proposal, you have to have at least 6 preceding generation pedigree for the dog, but they have sent a paper for caravan. Even that has run into trouble locally because one group says that is not caravan. What I have bred is caravan. They have had meetings. This happens. This is a problem we will have to face. But in spite of this, good Indian breeds of dogs are coming up, and there are individuals who are taking care of that. Many devoted dog owners are there. So these breeds that I have mentioned, I think they will survive, most of them. So breeds like Malapati, Gazelle Hound will disappear.
Okay, so it's good to know at least some of them that you've mentioned are going to survive, and I hope there are more efforts made for the disappearing ones so that they don't get extinct. We have an interesting question that is asking about have we ever had a census of Indian breeds?
No, we have not.
Okay, so
Government has not paid so much of attention to dogs. We do not have even have a list of Indian breeds, authentic. It's that Frenchman who did. After that, I don't think. This is a good topic for a researcher in veterinary science or biological science, Very interesting and colorful topic. The answer to your question is no.
thank you for sharing that. Before we end today's live, I would like you to tell our viewers how they can access your book. There's been a lot of interest in it and a lot of people who want to access it. Where can they find it and how do they get their hands upon it? Any way that they can find you, maybe on social media or to contact you?
It is available in Amazon, and Rupa publishers are the marketing, so you could get them through them. I would write to Rupa even when I want extra copies. The second edition will be coming soon, which will have 5 more breeds with pictures.
Wonderful. So yes, this book is available on Amazon. It is available. In fact, I have the Kindle edition of it as well, and various platforms where it's available. And a lot of our viewers are also saying that they've now ordered it and they're looking forward to reading it. Thank you so much, sir, for being with us here today, and we really appreciate you coming and sharing your vast knowledge and experience with us. And this book has been an amazing read for me, and I am genuinely looking forward to the second edition and reading about the 5 additional breeds that you're going to be incorporating. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for these encouraging words. I'm really thankful for that. Thanks for saying that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you to all the viewers.